This is Thursday, October the 17th, 2024. This is the St. Louis Linux Users Group, our monthly meeting. Our topic tonight is automated code review, or why does everybody hate my patches? It's by James Conway, and here's James.
Hello, everyone. Yes, that is the title of the talk. I'm going to be talking about some linters, some code review, and some ways that you can help keep your repos nice and tidy, up to date, even with like the latest and greatest with whatever your language thinks should be done. Most of the examples here will be specific to working with GitLab CI and GitLab merge requests. It's still applicable to other stuff, but that's just what I work with most day to day. So that's what I know, and that's what I'm able to give examples for. This talk is all about ways to make computers do all the tedious parts of code review. We're just talking about ways to make computers do the hard stuff with system monitoring. We can also offload a little bit of that for code review or just updating code even. It'll cover linters, formatters, and running them in a CI pipeline. All right, so what are linters? Well, if you want to be fancy and technical, they're static analysis tools, and they are programs that run on your source code to find code smells, errors, portability issues, missing semicolons, logic errors, a whole bunch of stuff. It depends on really your language, how it was configured, how the linter was written. They can find depreciated function calls, unused functions, variables. The idea behind it was that Stephen C. Johnson, while working at Bell Labs, made his first linter, literally called lint. Wikipedia says the idea was to create a lint trap like the one in your dryer, but for your source code, to just get all the little fuzzies out of your code base. But why would we run any checks? After all, my code is perfect. Please just, well, that slide didn't come out, but come on. This is easy to review. Please just merge it. My code is perfect. Wonder why that happened, but whatever. Okay, so I think that established that sometimes a little bit of help is very, very nice when it comes to code review. But why not just use the compiler? I mean, after all, we can tell it to be pedantic. We can tell it to turn on all the errors and to fail when anything errors. It exists, and it finds plenty of issues with my code for some reason. I always think it's perfect, but the compiler complains sometimes. Well, according to Lint's release document, it enforces the type rules of C more strictly than the C compiler itself. And if you're working in an interpreted language like Python, those linters are a lot more strict than Python is, so it can catch a lot of stuff during development time that would otherwise come around to bite you during runtime. Compilers, they're focused on generating code, sometimes fast, unless you're Rust, to the standard, unless you're GCC, in which case they make their own standard, and for small binaries, unless you're Go. So again, let's remember the Unix philosophy. We've all seen it, we all love it. We want to make each program do one thing well, do a new job, build it fresh, rather than complicating old programs by adding new features. So linters can focus for checking for things that compilers don't care about and can look for things that interpreters won't flag until your program is already broken. So let's have a practical example. I've got a very basic C program. Can anyone tell me what this program will print the standard out?
I'm going to say 102 lines of numbers from 0 to 100.
What is the number 10L?
Oh, it is valid. But yes, we got two options there. I don't quite think it'll be 102 lines. It should print out 0 to 100, but as who was that? Was that Tony? No, Casey pointed that out. We have an L there instead of a 101. So instead, the program's only going to print 0 to 9. Now we can tell that because we've got a nice font here. The L looks different from a 1. I think I even have it in a slightly different color, so it should pop out more. Thank you, Pandoc, for doing that. But what happens if we do run it with all those GCC flags and just tell it, hey, give me this program? It tells you no issues. It's worked. It's a completely valid C file, and everything is good. Even works with Clang. So that's, switching over to that compiler is not going to help you. I'm sure there are other examples, other C compilers where you can run it and it conforms to the standard. But let's try it with a linter. If we run Clang Tiny on this, well, it gives us, hey, you forgot to initialize your I before you use it, which can lead to issues, but it gives us the real error. Your integer literal has suffix L, which is not uppercase. So in C, it is completely valid to append L onto the end of your numbers to say that this is a long number. So instead of 101, we had 10L, 10 long. So yeah, I didn't mean to put an L there. So that's just a quick example. Linters are very good, useful, amazing. And your language of choice probably has one or several. For C++ and C, you've got Clang Tidy, CPP, Flaw Finder. If you can find it, I'm sure the original lint might still be out there somewhere. Might even be open source by this point. Python, everyone's made their own tools, PyLint, Pep8, Rough, PyCode style, 50 more, I don't even know off the top of my head. And then other languages have an official linter, like Rust and Clippy or Go. And that makes it a lot simpler when you just have one that you can stick with and you know what its output's going to be. It's so much better than dealing with all the Python stuff. But like I said, each one has their own output format. So you can have serif, code climate, line-oriented, plain text, test anything, framework, I'm sure can pop up maybe. Yeah, that's worth the test, but it's a jungle out there of here's the linter, here's what it's supposed to look like. I'm sure some even do JSON formatting. Okay, so let's just go through and have and set up Clang Tidy just for a local project because these ones are extra configurable and it's the language I chose to use for examples, so why not? If you tell Clang Tidy to list all the checks that are available, it'll tell you you've got well over 500 checks. And those can sometimes be contradictory. They can be just be style checks even. And that's just way too much. That's a whole lot. A very simple configuration file is these 3 lines. You only need really 2 of them, but I like having 3 to let others know that this is a YAML file. And you just enable all of them, but you disable the one specific to the LLVM backend. And you just have everything be an error. And as you go on and you decide what flags you like and what errors and everything you like, you can turn off the other ones. Because that's what this little tack here is for. It's, oh yeah, turn this off instead of add all the rest. Now it will actually return useful output because if we remember back to this, without that config file, this second one here is not actually printed. You just get warned about I not being initialized because 10L is in fact valid C. Nothing's going to complain about it unless you tell the linters to. Okay, so now we know how to get just a basic linter. We can get in all the repos. But what about code styles? Do we like our braces joined with the function name? Do we like the return type on top of the function name? Do we want spaces in between the curly brackets and the new line, or even in the parentheses before numbers, all sorts of crazy ideas people have come up with. Do you want to stick with GNU source styling, which I believe is a whole new indent +2 for some crazy reason? Well, it's a bit of a pain to keep code consistent across however many contributors you have, maybe across several projects. I'm sure someone's just lazy sometimes, gets to do it quite to the standard, or they just forget your one small little rule about where semicolons should go. Well, just like how linters can help clean up lint in your code base, we can also have machines do all the tedious stuff like strip tape trailing white space from lines. I hate trailing white space. I've got it enabled in my editor to show up, and it just makes my eye twitch. So I want something to force all my coworkers to also care about it. Well, way back in 1976, David Wilcox of the University of Illinois had the same thought and created indent. And indent would do what its name suggests. It would just indent your code consistently into standard. Now many languages have a default formatter. Some are lucky enough to have several. So again, C, it's a wild west out there. You got playing a format, A style, indent, anything you want. I'm sure someone's written a couple of formatters in Ruby just for the heck of it. Python, you got black, blue, rough. I don't know why, but oh, yeah, you also have the official like Pi code style, which won't actually change the formatting for you, just yell at you if you're doing it wrong. For Rust, hey, you've got Rust format. Or is it cargo format? And do I need to enable nightly for these features? Why is that so difficult, Rust? Choose one, you had the chance. With Go, you just do Go format with W flag to write it. Did someone have a question?
Yeah, well, you got to go back to that last slide. You teased us with like 3 or 4 goodies there. Cargo format, Rust format,
Yes.
nightly.
Okay, well, let's go and pop open a terminal. And let's see, do I have a repo? Do I have any Rust stuff? Haru, that's a okay. Well, let's pop over to GitHub and go find a Rust program. I don't seem to be able to type into my address bar. I blame Zoom.
Maybe you need a linter for what you're typing.
Just maybe.
Tony has asked, did we define what CI is yet?
We have not. CI stands for continuous integration. So it's the idea of you can run checks and builds every time code is merged into your master branch. Let's see if there is just a simple, oh, I know, that. Here we go, cat clone. Let's go and clone it. If I can remember how to run Git. I swear, I can't type when people are looking. Let's get the font good for everyone. So we can see here that this is a Rust project because we have a cargo.toml file here, and that tells the cargo, the Rust pack, repo compiler and everything, how to pile stuff, what packages to use, that kind of thing. And if we go run or go format, it will say it'll go through and format all your code. So if we go and let's try probably this one. Yeah. Just mess up the formatting a little bit. Format, and what are some things? No output, growth, package manifest. Just want to check. You don't want to make any changes. So it will go through and tell you, hey, this one file that we just messed with, it is bad. It's not formatted to the standard. So let's, this is the changes we will make. But there's also Rust format, which can take the same arguments, but has a couple different ones. So which one are you supposed to run? And let's see, and how are they different? Well, they are slightly different. They take different arguments. But Cargo will run it just on your whole repo, but Rust format needs to be like path filed or maybe a directory to search in. But if you notice, it has this option here for emit the files to standard out. And there's a couple of tools that work on that and like convert it to, say, a unified diff, because this is not a unified diff. If you have a tool that ingests that and works with that, it will not accept this input. It'll just break or tell you it's not valid. Or if you want it in JSON, again, to ingest a different tool, maybe post comments. Oh, yes.
Could you up the font on that a little bit?
Sure.
That's better.
Yeah. Yeah, so again, they're just slightly different flags that you can pass to Cargo format versus Rust format. I believe under the hood, they are the same, and it's just Cargo is handling some of those flags for you, but you do not get access by default to all of these, which can be annoying if you are running this in an automated fashion and you want all those things. And then if that nightly I was talking about, Rust has different versions, and if you want the latest bleeding edge, you install the nightly compiler and toolchain and everything, and you get all the best features. But those might not be stable, they might be going away, and I believe some features that everyone relies on have been stuck in unstable nightly for several years now. So that's some of my issues with Rust, but it's not that big or not that much of an issue.
So the use case for Rust format versus Cargo format would be, what's the different use case?
It is unclear, at least from the outset, until you run into an issue where one is not sufficient. Okay. Yeah, so that's just the error I've got. Like, what's the use case for, let's go back, Clang format versus A style or indent. They both do the same job. It can probably be down to personal preference with the C formatters, but Rust format and Cargo format are both official tools.
So would I be being overly persnickety to keep running both on my code regularly, or is that only a good practice because one will find stuff that the other one won't?
I believe they will both find the same issues.
Those two might be okay, but I've run into use cases where different linters for projects my team was working on at my last job, they conflicted with each other. Like, one thing wanted one set of parameters, and then the other one wanted a different set of parameters, so it would keep bouncing back and forth, and they wouldn't agree on the same thing. and it was kind of, you used the one that your team was or the larger team on the project was using.
Mhm. And that can be an issue with just went back to Clang Tidy. It has, like I said, this is just a real quick on the command line. Let's get a rough estimate of how many option it has. 500. I am sure there's at least half of those that conflict with the other half in some way. And that doesn't even get into like the security focused linters, which, oh yeah, you can't use this function because it's depreciated, but we don't know about the platform that you're working on, so maybe it's the only one available because it's a microcontroller with a specific runtime or something, or no standard library.
Yeah,
How-
the right number of linters to use is like one, exactly one, right? That's what I found.
Well, but then you run into repos where, oh yeah, we have Docker files, we have shell scripts, we have Python, we have Rust, and we all have it combined together for reasons, and no one has set up linters before.
Is there a man page, and how intense is it?
Oh, for the cargo stuff? Or for, is there a tool you're looking for?
Either or both?
So for cargo, no. So cargo format and stuff, because that's handling through Rust package manager, you do not get man pages for it. Yeah, so no manual entry for cargo. Well, okay, caveat, maybe if you install Rust through your system package manager, you do get it. They do not recommend that. They recommend you still just pipe the outputs of a curl command into your shell and trust that it all works. And I've made the decision that I'm just going to trust them, and there's no hanky-panky going on. But for most of these Rust tools, you just have to rely on the help. Yeah, see, a whole, what is that, 25 lines? If you wanted to go get, what's it called, like details about how configurable it is, look that up online.
Is there an info page for it?
Oh, no. Again, it's all done through, you use cargo to install Rust format. I think that's it. So it does not, yeah, so binary cargo format already exists in destination, which is different from Rust format and is different from cargo dot space format. But it's done through cargo, so it never updates the man page.
You don't think they would document the source code, do you?
Probably. I mean, they do have, I mean, they built their own documentation system for source code. So yes, it is probably there. It's probably available online. In fact, let's go check. Rustlang, Rust format, Rust code. Do they have a GitHub pages? That's deployed. Here we go, Rust format. Yes, you can configure it with rustformat.toml. It has lots of options. So maximum width of the args of a function-like attribute before falling back to vertical formatting. Okay. Now, okay, that's acceptable. We can accept that from Rust. They have their own package manager, so maybe they have their own way of getting documentation, but come on, Clang. Why don't you have man pages? Just to show that yes, it is installed. no man pages. And I was under the impression that in order to be packaged into apt by Debian, you needed man pages. Yes, but these are just more and more reasons why I like Go. It's so very nice just to have the one to worry about instead of all these variations and stuff. But hey, I did not choose to do my examples in Clang. My examples in Go. I chose to do it in C because I thought more people would be familiar. And so we have that same bad C file from before. It's formatted a little bit, not weirdly, but it's an old style. And you know, maybe the project has moved on, maybe conventions have changed, and we don't really like how it's formatted this way. How can we set up Clang format to run on it? Well, we can just Clang format example C, and it will print it out to standard output what it would change. We can see here that the return type is no longer on a new line, on a different line from the actual function name. And, you know, there's a couple, not that much, but braces are not on a new line as well. So it's a little more compact, not more up to date, but slightly different style. And for larger projects with lots of stuff to change, yes, this can be very useful and helpful, especially to knock down that one person on your team who has their own ideas of how to format everything. You can also pass Clang format the tag I to edit these files in place, so you don't have to copy and paste the changes yourself. And hey, this lets you do something like have this monstrous find command to go iterate through your entire project. Hey, I want to look for every file in here that ends in a .c or ends in a .h or maybe a .cpp, and pipe that into xargs where it'll just run it through Clang format and write. But this is really annoying in a lot of ways. It can be horrible if you've got, say, code files with other extensions, say a file that you intend to pre-process, or what if you have code with protobuf, or sorry, you generate files with something like protobuf, and so you don't want to format those files because they output differently and they don't really exist. So it's just an annoyance. And then how do we check to see if a merge request needs formatting besides just running this, committing it, or maybe checking a diff? Well, hey.
Am I understanding that this thing will actually reformat your stuff to whatever it should be?
Yes, it will.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, like Stan said, it will reformat your stuff. It'll just write to those files. Then you can commit it with Git or SVN or whatever you use. But I prefer using this Git Clang format script that is available in most repos. So just running it with the help, because this explains it better than I think I could. It will run on all lines that differ between commits. So say you have a merge request, you can just say, hey, format the lines that differ between what I'm trying to merge and what I'm trying to merge into, or just the lines that are changed. Yeah, so Pretty Printer is also a thing. Usually I think of Pretty Printer as only printing out to standard out. It might add color to your code and stuff, but they definitely exist. You can definitely use them to update your code. I believe JavaScript uses it, or its preferred formatter is Prettier, or that's the industry standard. But when using the Clang format suite of tools, I definitely recommend using Git Clang format, because it lets you narrow in on just the stuff that's changed, so you aren't overwriting the whole repo all at once, or maybe there are files that you don't want to change ever because it's got inline assembly or something, and you just don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. Okay, but now just as Clang Tidy is configurable with all those options, Clang Format is probably more so, even though it has fewer config items. And for this, really go to a site that shows you how your configs would affect the style. If we pop over to the website, we go pull it up. Well, not that one. Yeah. No. If we pop over here, we can give an idea of just how many options it supports. And we will also show you how your code styles will change. So let's just switch from like LLVM. Hold on, close, format it. Yeah, it's all good. And then to, let's say, GNU. Let's show the difference between the two. Try single mode, diff mode, there we go. Not quite sure what the difference here is. That might just be like length of line before you escape it. Here we indent and we have braces on a new line, on the same line, whereas over here we've got namespace. I wonder why that's not showing up. Maybe that's just the diff not working, but the brackets on the new line, same with the struct. We join it. Oh, well, I remember how much I really dislike these styles sometimes. Here's your template, and instead of all being on one line where it's nice and neat, you split it out into 4, which, hey, I'm sure there's a reason some people like it, but oh, this is just so many options to go through. You align your consecutive declaration. Just use this site if you're ever in the unfortunate position of needing to set up your configs for it. So I think we can all agree these tools are amazing. We can really use them to make our code better, more consistent, prettier, find security issues that we didn't know existed. How can we use them to speed up our code review process? Can't we just trust all contributors to run their linters locally and fix anything before pushing and asking for a review? Well, can't, at least not consistently. Okay, but maybe we'll just have, say, a continuous integration job that fails if a linter finds an error. That way, everyone will be forced to fix their code first. Hey, this is a great idea. We'll insist on consistency. There'll be a bright warning saying, hey, something's wrong, and we'll make it good. And we can also make the build system do it. Here's just a quick example using some make. If our build targets build, we can make format and lint prerequisites for it and just go and run the formatters. That's great. Do it even before it's committed. Your team might even know this, but while these can work, they are fragile. They're not as consistent as I would hope. And we've all been here. I'll just push this change before leaving for the weekend. And I haven't installed the linter locally, so I disabled that check in the build system. The lint job's been failing for 3 months, so we all just ignore it. Or my personal favorite, we got it from the subcontractor like this, and we aren't getting paid enough to fix all their crap.
Have you been listening in on our code review meetings at work?
Oh, yeah, no, I've been living those. Okay, so what are the strategies we can do? There's the ratchet strap strategy, where we can make sure that there's only a certain number of errors or warnings that are allowed to happen. we can post all the messages to the relevant merge request of just, hey, here's what the linter found with your single thing. And you can make all your lint messages a JIRA ticket. Casey, are there changes where if you change from format A to format B and then back to format A, the original will differ from the final? I have not tried too much with tools that have different formats. I do not believe so. It should be idempotent. I mean, that's the whole idea of a consistent tool and a consistent style, but that probably depends on the tool you're using and how robust it is. I do remember reading a blog post a while ago from someone making a formatter, and he described it as the most difficult program he's ever written, just because of all the edge cases. Yeah, so I do not recommend making every lint message a JIRA ticket. You will wind up with hundreds of issues in your backlog, and your developers and PMs will hate you. So let's explore the other options.
Fine, JIRA ticket.
So JIRA is a software development life cycle and planning and agile tool. So it's just a, like, you ever been at one of those places where you have postcards that you like move from columns? JIRA can help you support that with your Kanban board and just keep informations about tasks developers need to do to finish the software in a giant backlog.
I would simplify JIRA as a ticket/task organization system for a project, at least for the scope of this. I don't think the minutia of JIRA actually matter for this presentation.
Yeah, I mean,
So ticket system, JIRA was
yeah.
developed.
Could even be like a help desk ticket system or something, but no. All right, but
if you don't put the results of linting into a ticket of some kind, is it going to get fixed?
well, there are other ways to do it without having some way of the team knowing that it's either a failing job that they have to make pass before they commit, or some other kind of way of bringing it to their attention. No, will not get fixed. And so here comes the first strategy for that. We have a rationing lint job. That is a CI job that literally just has a fixed number of, hey, here's how many warnings we're allowed to have. If it's over this, then we yell out and say, hey, you cannot merge this. But if it's below or equal to, then you're good. This way, if you get a new project and it blows up your linter with 5,000 error messages, you can say, hey, we can't accept 5,001. We have to start moving it down. Then in a week, you can update to say 4,000 or however much progress you've made whenever it feels right. It's really simple to get started, and you can just hard code the threshold. Here's real quick, real simple script I've come up with. Hey, if you run YAML lint on something and it comes out with more than 10 errors, you exit with an error code of 1, and then you rely on your CI system to say, hey, that's a non-zero exit code. We have to stop and yell out about it. Now, just to be sure, just caution, I've not tested this snippet yet myself. Use at your own peril, but this can work.
Is the whole concept, though, of basing your going live with code just to be based on the number of lint errors? Because it would seem like some errors could have much more tragic consequences than others, which might be trivial.
Oh, yes. And most linters have some idea of levels. So you can have like a warning versus an error. And errors are hopefully more severe than warnings. But again, this is up to your tool. I'm talking about this mostly from a perspective of we already have this project. It might already be deployed or in the customer's hands. Now, how do we improve it and just enforce some consistency? If it's already running in production, then all the errors there, they might be big issues, but they aren't causing issues right now. But like I said, I've not tested this snippet or this CI job myself. I've got a different way that I prefer. I like just grabbing the lint messages about the lines that have changed in your patch set, in your merge request, and just post it to the same page and saying, hey, here's an issue. And I don't want to have to do that for each one, so I've got robots to do that. Speaking of, there's this little project, Review Dog. It literally just runs linters and filters for messages about lines that have changed between Git revisions. It can support as many linters to your heart's content. It takes the linter standard out and checks that against the diff of your patches to review, and it only posts messages about lines you've changed in this merge request. It supports a whole bunch of linters with predefined formats out of the box, and it also implements Vim's error format, so you can define your own if you've got a super special linter that doesn't like any of the predefined formats. Just a couple of linters it supports: Flippy for all your Rust stuff, PEP8 for all the Python stuff, YAML lint has its own special one, and typos to catch all of your typos. It has really sped up a lot of my contributions to merge requests at work. I used to be the person who'd go through your MR looking specifically for trailing white space and commenting about that, but now I've got Review Dog to do it for me. And yeah, it's just some of the things it catches. It has trailing white space, does not match our style settings, the function is depreciated, this variable or function name is misspelled. It's just been wonderful. Okay, but let's say you're on board, you want to add it to your repo. Well, all you need is some kind of access token for it to use. You set the correct access token available in your CI environment. So for GitLab, it's Review Dog GitLab API token. I believe it needs developer API access just to post to merge requests. And then you have some machine configured to run a Docker container with the Review Dog binary and any linters you want. Then your CI system can go clone your repo, run your checks, and post messages to your heart's content. Here's an example configuration just for GitLab CI. It's as simple as 3 lines. Once you have everything else set up, maybe 4 if you specify a specific Docker image.
Wait, so is Review Dog a SaaS product?
No, it is open source and everything. Let's go pull up.
And what does it need? You lost me at the key part. So you have it needs a key, even though it's an open source thing?
Yes, it needs a key to integrate with GitLab. So hey, it needs to authenticate against it just to post comments.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because otherwise it's just outputting to your log, which can be useful, but in my experience, you're only looking at your CI logs if something has gone wrong. And not all lint era messages are stop everything right now. Yeah, so here's an example of it working with GitLab. Workflow completed with no, not GitLab, GitHub. And they've got GitHub Actions available and pre-made, so you can run a whole bunch of linters just out of the box. You can also run locally. So if you want to get a preview of, hey, just what are the messages that's going to happen when I push it up first and get ahead of it, you can do that as well. Let's go and push up that. That's the opposite of what I wanted. There we go. And And then you still need some way to tell it, hey, here are the linters I want you to run. Cargo check. Again, it's one of those pre-made linters. You can just say, use your pre-made format, and same with typos. And here's an example. Oh, I did not give an example of how to use Vim's error format, but it's not all that difficult. You just want to specify, like, hey, here's where the file is and the line number, and then the message for anything that comes out to stand it out. And the other tool I've been making a lot of use of, although a little bit less than ReviewDog, is Danger. Danger is another like review tool, and it comments on every MR with, say, reminders and to-dos. So for instance, hey, reminder, you need to run, or here's how we run our formatter just to make sure everything's the same. Or hey, you need to click this button manually when you're ready for review, that kind of stuff.
James, I'm brain dead. What's an MR?
Merge request. So
Okay.
it's equivalent to GitHub's pull requests.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So how does Danger work? Danger, it analyzes your patch set, your changes based on rules written in Ruby, and posts messages that you define in those rules. They can be as simple as always saying, thank you for the MR, or alerting if a specific file was updated when it should not have been. And the process for getting Danger set up, it's very similar to ReviewDog. You create an access token for it. You set the access token just so it knows where to look. You make sure you've got a Docker image with it set up and a server that was configured to be used as your CI system. And you set it up with GitHub CI. Again, real simple. Danger, you have a script that just runs the bot. And then in your repo, you check in a file, .danger file is what's it's called, and here's an example of how you can configure it. And this is one of the rules. So, hey, maybe you just want to alert if anything under your lib directory was updated, but the corresponding tests were not. Just check to see if we have app changes by grepping for any changes under lib, and then comparing to see if we have any test changes by grepping for anything under spec. And if you do have one but not the other, then we warn about it. All right, questions, comments, concerns?
This is Stan. I got some strange questions.
I might have some strange answers.
Okay, you were talking about excessive white space. How would you define that? What is it?
So I'll pull my editor over.
Is that the white space after or before the end of line character, or what?
Yeah, so if I set list just to display it, this one line 347 has a whole bunch of trailing spaces. I don't like that.
Is it a problem?
It is not, but it's just like an eye twitch for me.
Okay.
And there are languages that rely on having consistent white space, say Python. So if you indent one line with a tab, when it should be 4 spaces or 3 spaces, that can cause issues.
I think I was familiar with white space before a line, but never after.
You can also run into a problem where if you have white space at the end of a line in an included file, that file that's included in the middle of some other context, you end up having that white space in an unexpected location and can cause downstream problems.
Any idea how sensitive that might be? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4?
It is domain specific.
Yeah, it is not really an issue you're going to run into.
So
Maybe if
so by that, when you say that it could shift into a different domain, are you talking about okay, if there's X number of white spaces at the end of, and you now are on a screen or a different.
No,
Right.
think about it this way. You're typing a text document, white spaces at the end of a line to a human don't matter. Whereas if you're doing something where you're generating objects, binary objects that are concatenated together, and somehow you have a white space at the end of something, when it's concatenated, you now have a broken blob. It could go from anywhere of a human won't see it to it caused a core dump. And it really depends what context you're doing something in. Make sense?
Yeah, from a absolute mechanical point of view, yeah. I'm just having trouble thinking of when I would have done that.
How long has it been since you built a program out of compiled modules?
Yeah, could be.
30 years, 40 years?
It's probably bad practice to have, let's say 400 just spaces on one line at the end of your header files.
Mhm.
Nice discussion. Thank you. Other questions?
Here's an example that may be more germane. It may, let's say it's white space at the end of the line that consists of a carriage return followed by white spaces. And if you're concatenating things or including things for Python, you may now have added indentation before the next line. When you're
That could even happen in, say, make files if you're got it including one and it's got a trailing, say, new tab before
or you've got
your
developers
recipes.
working on different platforms and line feed differences, and yeah, it's one of those things that you can't really predict it, but when it happens and you find out what happened, you're going to have a series of 4-letter words.
And
There's two scenarios where I've actually run into problems with something like this. Number one is tabs and spaces. A lot of editors like tabs, or other editors automatically save the tabs as spaces. So if your code you're trying to compare with the previous code to find the differences, it'll flag all the tabs.
Mhm.
Because sometimes they're spaces, sometimes they're tabs.
Yeah.
The other example is very similar. Like if you got a ton of spaces in there, if somebody edits the file and they happen to clean it up, then you've created another difference from one version to the next.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
one of the big reasons to use a linter to clean up code is so you don't get extraneous differences when you're trying to produce it, trying to build the final product.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think you've touched on some of the reasons that Go includes some format linting built into the language.
Yeah.
Mhm. It's all just one style. You better like it or leave.
Well, there was only one book, K&R, right?
For C? No, everyone's written books.
Well, if you're a little bit older, that might be your Bible.
I know programmers under 30 who it's their Bible.
Can we jump back to look at your beginning slides again? I want to see if there were any questions that kind of came up in the setup here that.
Of course.
Hey, I have a question about your GitLab setup here. Do you have runners that are running these linters on like on the CLI runner, or is it a Docker runner, or how are you accomplishing that?
Yes, it is a Docker runner, and these are all servers that my company owns. But there shouldn't be an issue with GitLab, as long as you make your own, say, Docker image, you should be able to push that up and use their like community runners.
Click forward again through your slides a little bit. Thinking there's something I saw about different languages that made me think of something, but I can't remember what it was.
Okay, we can pop down.
There we go. Okay, that was one of them. Okay, so, gee, you're saying Rust isn't fast? Talk to us. What's that about?
Well, it has this thing called the borrow checker, which the idea is we don't want a garbage collector, but we still want memory and type safety, because having memory and type safety is nice. But but garbage collectors tend to slow down programs, and they're big and complicated. So instead, we'll make you prove to the compiler before it'll even compile your code that you're not going to have any double freeze, or you're not going to try and use something that you're not allowed to. And that has its advantages, but one of the disadvantages, it adds just a little bit of overhead to every compilation. And that might be okay if it weren't for all the different community packages you have to, say, download and usually recompile with any substantial Rust project.
Okay.
So I think I can probably do this with that. No, that's not significant lines of code, but this has, an amount of dependencies. Not that many, say like 50, but if we go and cargo build, back release, and let's just go time it. We go and check for updates to any packages, go and download them, and then we compile them. Now, again, each one's not all that long, but it is almost 180 of them. And if you can find ones that do take forever to compile, maybe they're dealing with cryptography, or they're just extra large one. I believe for async, like basically everyone's decided on Tokyo, or the serialization, deserialization library is another one, where they've made the decision, hey, we'd rather have a longer compilation process because that'll let us have a faster runtime. And so we can see here that it's taking a good long second to compile basically a cat replacement. Now, there's definitely extra features in here that's not in the cat you have on your system, but 5 minutes just for a simple cat build, that seems like a lot to me. And it grows rather exponentially. And my company has decided, hey, we want to target 24 platforms for one Rust project. So that's a whole lot of CI time that could be going to other things, I think.
By the way, that was another question in the chat earlier. Could you define CI?
Yes, continuous integration. And with continuous integration, the idea is we can run checks, run builds every time code is committed and merged into, say, your master branch or any protected tags to go and check first off, can we still compile? Do we pass all the lints? Okay, is this all good? Are we confident deploying it? And so it's usually combined with continuous delivery, where it's as much as possible, you want to automate all these checks and deployments.
Okay, so we've maybe not defended, but finessed FAST's honor. Let's defends GCC's honor. You mean Clang is different from GCC?
Okay, so if you go to the man page for GCC, let's make this nice and big. What do you think the standard is that it's compiling to just by default? So C has several standards.
What? There's more than one standard?
Hold on. What do people have any guesses? I'll give you a hint because I don't know off of my head, but I am using version 14.2 of GCC, released 2024.
97. That's my guess.
97? Are we sure about that?
Not at all.
I forget where in the man page it comes, and see what it's equivalent to standard. Determine the language standard. It's only supported when compiling C or C++. And then compiler set up several things all the way from C90. Specified. Some strict combinations. Must be provided possible values or C90s, 89s, ISOs, C9X.
Are those all standards?
Yes. We have GNU specific, GNU++ 98. Let's go. The assembler. Did they change the man page layout? I could have sworn you used to be able to find it in that section of just going through.
So I have another question about GitLab. So you're running the Docker runner, right? Which means that on some system you have this runner which can run Docker containers.
Yes.
And then are these Docker containers like constantly running, and then you call them with like some kind of HTTP call, or is this something where you're running you're like bind mounting in the code and then running the container and then shutting it down every time the pipeline starts up?
Okay, I can talk to that, but I did find the standard. It is GNU 18, which is a specific GNU dialect of ISO C17. So if you were using any features that GNU thought you didn't need, or maybe they don't support correctly, and you thought you were writing C17, no, you are not. There's probably more just you have options and extensions. So that's why I say you don't really go to the standard, you get GNU standard. As for your question, Sean, the way GitLab CI system works is you have several VMs, maybe even a Kubernetes cluster set up, and they have a program called GitLab Runner on it. And that program manages the individual runners that you configure. This terminology is very annoying because lots of people just call the servers that they're running on the runners. And so you're talking about runners running the runner, running individual runners because you can have multiple on a single server. But those servers, that program will talk to GitLab, and they are looking for jobs to be picked up. So every time the GitLab and its CI system says, hey, we need to kick off a pipeline and run these jobs, those individual jobs will be picked up by the available runners. Those jobs will then go and download any Docker images you need. If it's a Docker runner, you can also do it just based off a shell and just with whatever packages you have on that server. It'll go download the runner, and then it'll go and clone your repo into that Docker image, Docker container, and run any scripts you have defined.
Okay, so hold on. So the runner is starting the container, execing into it, running a git clone, copying scripts, and then executing the scripts, and then somehow outputting the result somewhere. That seems like very complicated.
I don't know if it's the best solution, but it's the one I'm with. But yes, the server that you have your runners on, it has a program that will go pull your Docker image, clone your repo into it, and then exec a script that GitLab creates for it when it starts the job based off of all your configuration items. So if we go to here, the script can be as simple as just danger. And then all that is captured in your GitLab logs. It can also generate artifacts and stuff that can be uploaded and made available to subsequent jobs in your pipeline.
Okay. And so somewhere else, so I assume this is a snippet from a GitLab CI.yaml file, and then somewhere else in that file will be the image to use for this stage, or is that configured completely somewhere else?
It can be both, yes. So you can have the image in the snippet. You can have another keyword underneath. You can have a default one that's used by all jobs in this repo, in this project. And then each runner is also configured with use this default image if none are specified.
Do you have any GitLab jobs that like make commits to the repo?
I do not. I think that is probably a little bit overboard and a little bit a little bit janky. That's not something I want to deal with and mess with. If we are making changes to repos, I want it to be actual developer making that change and not just bots doing code churn for no reason.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn, right? I don't like, okay, so linters are one thing, but I also like formatters, right? And then there's like, what is a linter? What is a formatter? The line's very blurry there. But to me, a formatter should not have any rules that it can't fix itself, right? Like that's the thing that made Prettier so dominant in the JavaScript space is Prettier will never fail to build, right? It will just fix anything that it gets upset about. And that is like a superpower. So I want format issues to just automatically be fixed when somebody pushes them without us having to like have comments in the MR or something, you know?
For all as I know, or as far as I know, that is probably possible. It might even be best practice, but it's not something I've cared to look into. I believe I know with GitHub, like Dependabot is a thing where we'll go through, check for dependency updates and make an MR that you then have to approve. So that could be something similar. But yeah, it should be possible with GitLab. I know you can use APIs and just REST to say, hey, make these changes to these files. I'm not sure if like each job has like a default permissions to interact with GitLab and a default key token to do that with. So I don't know if it has those permissions by default to make the changes and commit it.
Yeah, at work we have, probably, tens of thousands of GitLab repos. And so, they don't want to have to update each one of those whenever they want to make an update to one of the pipeline fragments. So they somehow have a bot and I have no idea how this works, some kind of magic that will come in and detect that your GitLab deployment.ci file is out of date in some way, and it will automatically update it and commit it back to the repo. And then, but of course, sometimes that gets out of whack, and so you have to like zero out the file, and then it'll generate the new one, and it's all this kind of magic. But
Yeah.
I think that not having bots committing back is a good idea, but at the same time, so like these comments and MR slowdowns for formatting stuff just drives me crazy at this point.
Yeah. Again, that's one of the reasons why I like Review Dog. If one of the things it supports is suggestions in comments. So if your tool outputs as like a unified diff, which I think I've got in a couple of tools like the Ruffs formatter to output as a unified diff, then it'll give you a code suggestion. And then it's just a matter of, oh yes, apply and commit all in one go. Otherwise, it's now please run our linters.
I really wish Git had better pre-commit hooks. I think that could solve a lot of this. Have you had any luck with those? I've not had any luck with those really.
Only personally, and that's because if you try and force it out to everyone and find some way to make it do it, then you turn CD into a security vulnerability, because then anyone could make a change to a pre-commit hook and you CD into this repo, it runs basically immediately as your prompt does, because a lot of people have their bash prompt set up to show them what branch they're on, and suddenly you're running something that's looking for all your keys and curling it to a server who knows where. CD considered harmful. There is, was it pre-commit, a Python project where it's supposed to make it easier to do all that.
The one we use is Husky. We use Husky on our React code, and all it does is configures the pre-commit hook and runs it before you commit, and it does a prettier write, so it fixes all of the format issues with prettier. And actually, now that I mention it, that does work pretty good, but I wish I didn't have to use a tool for that. I wish it could just do that with just Git, but it just doesn't seem like it works well enough.
And just rely on other people to make yourself a script that you then browbeat other people into putting into the right place, or try and get pre-commit set up. But that, again, you have to rely on people installing it and then remembering to run it as soon as they clone your repo. But what's this tool, Husky?
Yeah, it's called Husky. It's and it's a node package. And I think it's pretty good, because like whenever you clone a node package, the first thing you have to do anyway is npmi, right, to install. And so this just also installs Husky when you do that. And then the Husky config files will have it run like prettier or whatever every time you commit. And it, like I said, there's no errors. It just fixes whatever it's upset about. So it's pretty frictionless.
Yeah, I've done something similar with cargo format for one of the projects, and no one's complained about it yet. But it is dependent on your language and your tooling around it, because no one wants to have to fix their build step by, I installed this thing, or God forbid, set up Docker correctly to pull an image, mount all your code inside of it, and then run format on it. Because that can lead to all sorts of issues, like maybe incorrect permissions. If you generate like a compilation database for your C stuff, it doesn't work. If you compile stuff in Docker images, now I just get to gripe about my work and practices I wish weren't standard there.
Well, one thing that I don't like about GitLab is like other people's pipeline. So like there's this concept of pipeline fragment. So somewhere you can define a pipeline fragment, and then you can import that in another pipeline.
Mhm.
But you know, GitLab pipelines are already notoriously hard to troubleshoot. And now if you're
Mhm.
running some other pipeline and some other repo somewhere within this GitHub, this massive GitLab organization, you know, like finding the code that's failing and then like what is it even doing? And it is an absolute nightmare in my opinion. But what have
Mhm.
you found as far as like, do you do any type of integration tests in your GitLab pipeline? Because even just figuring out if all the services started up to start talking to each other and doing the tests is like very difficult, I found.
Yeah, so to do that, I've settled on I'm just going to use Terraform to set up a whole bunch of infrastructure ahead of time, and then we can install stuff on it and run the end-to-end tests against it. And that can still be very painful. It can, especially for a couple of projects where it just takes forever to install their thing and run the tests. But yeah, that's the best solution I've come across so far.
Yeah, but at least then you have a thing you can SSH into and get the logs, right? Like
Yeah.
GitLab has a thing where it'll basically like, hey, give us your Docker containers, and you know, and we'll run them, and then you can have your, you know, whatever code you're actually testing call out to those, right? And so that way you're doing like an integration test.
Yeah, the
But
services.
right, but if one of those services doesn't start, you'll never know. Like, good luck figuring that out, right? Like, it's oh my goodness, it's and then
Yeah.
if it does start, but it errors in any other way, like you're not getting that log. Like that log is just it doesn't exist
Gone.
to you. So yeah, so your way is probably the best way. But man, that sounds like a lot of overhead, you know?
Yeah, it depends where you are. Like my company's got their own vSphere setup, so I'll just grab 12 VMs to do everything on, and no one seems to bat an eye at that. I guess if you're doing everything on AWS, then it costs you 25 cents per minute or whatever for all that. It's definitely not worth it, or it might not be worth it.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen any of my recent talks, but my intro is, you know, I was a system administrator and then I saw all this DevOps and cloud stuff happening and I noped out to software development. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Like I saw some future where I was spending my days all day, every day, troubleshooting GitLab pipelines. And I said, no, thank you. And so switched over to software development. What about you? Do you have DevOps in your title now or how's it?
I do. Uh, I did not have gray hairs before I started this job. Yeah, there's been too many times where I've just pushed a change where the only thing I changed was add an ls to a GitLab script. Does the file even exist at this point? Yes? Okay, then let's change it.
Well, yeah, but each one of those tests took you what, 20 minutes maybe, more, maybe more.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
Yeah.
As a developer, your loop is pretty fast, right? Like the program will compile, you know, or you'll get a squiggle in your IDE, so you know pretty fast if you messed up. For the GitLab pipelines, you know, especially if you need approvals on your MR, right? You make a one-line change to your GitLab YAML, then you got to
you push it up, you wait half a day or however long.
yeah, you got to wait a half a day
it.
for your coworkers to review it. Then they approve it. Then you merge it in. Then you realize you made a small typo and you start the whole thing over again. And I know
or it takes
right out of there.
or it takes an hour and a half for the pipeline to fail, and you don't notice it until it fails, and then you go through and try and dig it and debug. It just adds time.
Yeah, see all the people on this call who retired before GitLab became a thing, they're the lucky ones, you know. They always say, you know, you don't know how good you kids got it these days, but they're all the lucky ones. Seriously, it's much worse now.
See, that's why I've got the review dog. Just don't fail the job. Just yell at the programmer. Fix your MR. One time there was a real big refactor of a project, and I think someone got 3,000 review dog comments on it. That MR page was not usable. It would take forever to load.
So you're dependent upon the internet being available at all phases through this, right?
No, I operate in a sandbox environment, which means I don't have to talk to Google or Docker Hub or stuff. But it does mean I have to pull everything in manually if I want to use it.
Okay.
Yeah, but
That-
if you set this up in like the publicly available GitLab, yes, you
Right.
are kind of reliant on those the internet for everything. Just doing all this locally, no, just whatever you have on your system.
Okay, so you're pulling all these calls into your virtual machine that you're dealing with. Your
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
the Docker image and stuff.
Okay, that makes sense then.
And that kind of touches on some prior comments about where to host the Git repo for various projects, like the website, be it externally or hosted on STLLUG equipment.
Mhm. I mean, we could set up a GitLab or a Git or something ourselves. Or heck, just like a real basic Git forge.
Hey, James, expand a little bit on the difference between how you do it and how GitLab does it. In other words, do you duplicate the entire CI/CD from GitLab in your sandbox, or some part of it, or how's that look? What's that look like?
So we have a GitLab instance that's just installed the normal way. You either use like Docker Compose to spin it all up, or you use the deb package to get it running. And then we have servers set up whose only job is just, hey, wait for GitLab to say we have jobs available, please go and run these. And they're configured to talk to each other. Then if you want Docker images, we have a specific Docker container registry. I think it's Harbor is what we use, but GitLab also offers their own. And so you can tar up a Docker image, transfer it over manually via USB stick or whatever, and then upload it to a registry. And the GitLab, the scripts and stuff can know, oh, we're looking for harbor.local instead of docker.io whatever for this Docker image. So we'll just pull that and run everything in there.
Okay, so what's your trade-off? In other words, you said the GitLab CI/CD can take a heck of a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
Is there some point where you basically create a process step in there where you run your test first before you push it up?
Yeah. Or if I'm, so yeah, you can do that in the build system itself. You can run the formatter or the linter and refuse to build if they're having issues.
Okay.
Or if you're testing the pipeline itself, you can just move the job you care about to the very front. So it's the first thing that runs and say, I just ignore all the rest.
Yeah, and also I just encourage all the developers to run the test locally on their machine before they push it up, right? I get annoyed when developers are like, no, this is gonna work, and they just push the code and they wait 45 minutes for the pipeline to run to figure out it failed. I'm like, and what have you been doing the
You
last
get
45
paid how
minutes? Just
much?
sitting here?
Yeah. At the very least, push it and then run it locally.
Right, exactly. Yeah, don't just sit here for 45 minutes waiting for the pipeline because it's gonna fail, and then oh my goodness, so annoying.
But again, the bad old days. Yeah, I'm just pushing this before leaving for the weekend. No need to test. Yeah, I never installed the linter locally or the test framework. It's annoying. It's just busy work. The CI does it for me. Yeah, Portland job's just failing for 3 to 6 months, or we got it from a subcontractor like this. It's just, I've done it. I'm sure everyone else on my team has done it. It's just, okay, I know this is going to work. Just going to push it and get out of here for the day.
So these were all comments that were heard at Boeing's Starliner team, right?
Probably. Or the 737 Max. Yeah, it's just a little thing. Who needs to test this module?
The 730 Max debacle was caused by the marketing department. Because they used the customers to pay a couple extra bucks for the training on how to use this new whiz-bang system. that anybody with half a mind knows, well, if you've got a problem, just reach over and flip the damn thing off.
Nah, it's just like the 747. No need to retrain. Nothing could possibly go wrong. Excuse me, the Boeing representative just shown up at the house. He's got a long dark trench coat. I'm sure nothing bad will happen. I'll talk to you all later.
Well, we can always pass the hat and, you know, could collect some coins for your bail if we need to.
No, with Boeing, now it's 2 shots to the back of the head, suicides, right? That's what happened to the whistleblower.
All right, so anybody else? I wonder how many glassy eyes we have right now, Gary.
Yeah.
It's harder. There's less, no beer like at Nick and Elena's unless you brought your own.
Yeah, really. By the way, we went there a few months ago and they were going gangbusters. So, and the pizza was just the same as it was 3 years ago. Because I got my large deluxe with triple anchovies.
No, it's 4 years ago now.
Four now. Okay.
I ran into I'm blanking on his name, but he was one of the cooks that was kind of a regular who knew us. And he said the owner's selling to somebody else. There's somebody who has come in, worked there now for a few months, made an offer to just buy him out. He's going to take him up on it.
Well, I mean, they lost the old man, so yeah. That was kind of the thread that held it together, most likely.
So got chat here.
Yeah, Grant has a great point. History has shown time and time again that relying on humans to always do the proper thing rather than relying on technology to assist the human. And that's the end of the sentence. But yeah, you can't always rely on the humans to do the tedious work over and over again.
That's why you automate it.
And that's why the pipeline takes 45 minutes because we automate everything.
Yeah.
We have any further technical comments?
Oh,
Right now, I'm going to talk for a couple minutes, but
I've got a question before you talk.
Oh, go ahead.
I think a lot of great information and examples on how to utilize linters. Any pointers on creating linters or proto or pseudo linters to be able to run sanity checks on some of your own things that are domain specific? Like if I wanted to write a linter to check a bind zone file. Yes, I know there's named check zone, but something like that. Say I'm wanting to check that Apache virtual host configuration snippets match my company's requirements. Because that seems like a linter functionality. I'm sure there are places where one could be used where one doesn't exist.
Yeah, if I were to make it, I'd probably have it output this JSON, code climate JSON stuff, maybe Serif, but just choose a standard that other tools can then ingest. And it just will go have a couple information like here's the language, here's the location, and here's like how difficult it should be to fix. As for actually doing all the linting, well, that depends on how complicated you want it to be. if you want to make sure that, say, a C file is all correct and stuff, then you have to basically build your own abstract syntax tree to do all the analysis on that. But if you just want to check to make sure, say, all the curly brackets are properly opened and closed, that's a lot simpler. You can just scan through the file, count the number of opens, make sure it matches the closed, and go. I have not actually made too much of a linter. I think I made one for make just to check to see, hey, do we have a help function? And that just, sorry, a help target, and have you annotated all the targets so that it can be picked up? And that was literally just scanning through the file and maybe comparing two lines together.
Yeah.
See if they've got it.
And that's a perfect example of the type of what I would call weird, odd thing to want one for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm still talking about this presentation, but not the technical content as much as how we got here. I'm looking at the list of participants, attendees here, and most of the names I recognize. And let's see. Does anybody consider themselves either relatively new to the group or first time attendee, or somebody just want to volunteer why they came tonight, what attracted them to this presentation, how they got here? Don't all jump at once. And I'm just curious as to, is this just normally on your calendar, or did you look at the topic tonight and say, oh, wow, Linters, I want to really hear this topic? Or you saw James's name out there and said, oh, it's James speaking to that. I got to go hear James.
I kind of a little negative Nancy type thing. I saw it was not about artificial intelligence and thought, okay, this will probably be interesting. And I think I also had some conflation in my head about linters and relationship to parsers like Yak and Lex.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was one of the stories about Lint originally. The creator was trying to debug some, like a Yak syntax on a new operating system. So, all the fun stuff of cross compilation, and just like, no, I really need a tool just to make sure I'm consistent. And that's how we ended up with the linter.
I think that's it. Is that a build you're running there, James?
I'm just updating my system packages.
Oh.
I want to grab lolcat for reasons.
Okay, so now I'm going to bend everybody's mind off the technical subject of this talk, but about this talk. And that is, I don't recognize anybody who currently is a participant. There's at least one or two people who have signed off already that hasn't been to meetings frequently before. So I'm just wondering, we did put this out on Meetup, but I'm guessing that nobody in the current list of participants joined us because of Meetup. Am I fair in saying that, or somebody want to correct me and say, oh no, I found it in Meetup?
This is Stan. I saw one guy from Meetup, first time here, came in late, asked if he had missed anything significant, and then he left early.
Okay.
Not too early, but about, 5 minutes ago.
Okay. That was probably the same one that I noticed.
Nick something another.
Yeah, it was a Nick. Okay. And I guess I'm wondering, I'm trying to fix my personal problem here. Did I not label this as well as I could have? I mean, there's in
Well-
Meetup, you can put 5 categories at the bottom. And they use that for their promotional search engine to,
The
to
problem
tell-
is you did not include basket weaving, Gary.
oh, okay.
Is
Okay.
that underwater basket weaving or just
How to
dry?
find girls.
Yeah, yeah.
Underwater, upside down.
I would speculate that linters are a fairly, niche doesn't seem like the right thing, but it's a fairly off the beaten path or
Mhm.
we're deep in the weeds. And I feel like a lot of, shall we say, newer or junior admins or programmers that I run into now, they want things handed to them on a silver platter. They don't want to think about things. So anything that they had not run into, had a need for, they're probably not going to bother learning something that might help them because it will take some effort.
You mean snot-nosed developers?
Yeah, that's awful pessimistic. I think linters are very language specific, right? Like knowing anything at all about a linter for a language that you don't use is like wasted in your like brain, right? It's like wasted space in your brain. I think that if this talk was more specific to one language, one linter, deep dive, something like that, then I think anybody who doesn't use that language would not show up, but maybe but the people who did show up would find it more useful, I think.
There's some truth to that, but there's a high level takeaway. What can linters do at a language agnostic level? And then here's what these 3 different linters can do for language du jour.
Mhm. Yeah, so a deep dive into, say, Clang Tidy or Clippy.
Okay. Let's see. Can I take over the screen?
Of course.
You know what I think would get a lot of people though? So I see you're using STLLUG here, and Lee.
STLLUG, yeah.
Okay, I didn't say I knew how to pronounce it. Okay, I just know that you're using it.
STLLUG versus Tmux versus Screen.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, because I did one. It was Kitty versus Westerm, and that one kind of blew up on YouTube a little bit. And I bet if we did one, it was STLLUG versus Tmux with you and Lee. I bet that would like also do pretty well. So just something to throw out there in case you feel strongly about what is it? STLLUG?
I
STLLUG.
would suggest
STLLUG.
it's in the queue, possibly.
Okay, I'm back in the world of Meetup here for a moment. Okay, so in Meetup, the little blue boxes you see there up in the upper half of the screen, it starts off saying events in St. Louis. That was just automatically generated. I haven't investigated how to eliminate that for the people who live out of town, but I presume everybody can just live with that. So the other things, the other 5 boxes on there are what I chose. And it's not that I necessarily typed that myself. I selected from their list of selections. So I don't know how many of you have ever looked at their list of suggestions, but Linux, code review, software development, technology professionals, and learn to code. Those were the 5 that, looking through the choices that Meetup gave me, I thought might be the most attractive. Did I miss?
I don't know what it offered, but I probably would have done some form of automation instead of
Mhm.
technology professionals. And I feel like learn to code, probably not on mark. It's
CI/CD maybe. I will.
yeah, but you didn't. I don't think there was much training content of here. There was some overview,
Mhm.
not training, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wonder if the reason we got Nick was he wanted to learn how to do a code review
Mm-hmm.
instead of learning all about code reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. like I say, it doesn't let you free farm putting an answer there. It's you got to select from their list. I mean, if you type something in, it will come back at you and suggest, well, here's, 3 things that use the word that you've used, or here's half a dozen things that used a similar word, or but I can't just type it in myself. So yeah, for those of you who haven't ever looked at the choices in Meetup, I appreciate your comments, but yeah, I'm looking for.
I wonder why the 3 female names that were said they were going to show didn't come tonight.
Yeah.
Well, because they were catfish, of course.
Oh well. Okay.
Okay, should we shut down the recording and go to Q&A, or?
Anybody want to ask any more questions specifically on James's topic here? Follow up on any of that for a moment.
Do you have, and you gave some overview on the stack you use at your work. Do you have any of that summarized in textual form, or is it wait and watch the recording and take some notes?
Mhm. I do not have it summarized in text form. Most of it's up in my head, but I'm able to answer questions if you want.
Well, no, I was thinking more like if there was just a 3-sentence paragraph or longer type thing, I would like to circle back and look up some of the key things you mentioned to learn a little bit more about them, to see if they might help in some of what I do. And that's just kind of, text is convenient for later consumption.
No, it does not. I don't even think it's mentioned too much in the slides, but those will be available.
Even if it's just the names of things, that's good enough to tickle things.
Yeah, I mean, the slides and all, I can throw them in the chat right now.
Code review? Question mark.
What are those topics even used for? Do we know? Is that like is there like a browse section on Meetup where you can browse by those topics or something?
That they also do their own promotional and promotional thing. So when you look at some meetings,
when you join, you say what you're interested in, and they try to match up with what you're interested in.
right. A code review obviously is totally frigging useless. I mean,
Code
DevOps,
improvement?
maybe.
Say again.
Code improvement?
I guarantee you there isn't a single person using Meetup that can even spell code review.
Mm-hmm. Got home improvement, self-help.
I saw information technology pop up there for a second.
Okay.
Did you search for automation yet?
Oh,
Test automation. It's adjacent.
data center and ops.
Automation.
Try DevOps.
Yeah, that's an option. It's listed there at the bottom of all the stuff. All one word. There we go.
Okay, good. Probably one I should have used that. Okay.
What about if you type in continuous is I want to see if CI or CD comes up. Oh yeah, GitLab. That might be another one.
Yeah, we got integration, delivery, deployment.
Yeah, so there's CI and CD right there, continuous integration, continuous deployment. So that might have been a good one. But I feel like just DevOps is better, you know? Who like if I'm signing up for Meetup, I'm not gonna be like, oh man, I'm so into continuous integration. Like I would just say I'm into DevOps, you know, cloud DevOps, something like that.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, I'm super into frying pans, y'all. Like, you know, it's like too specific, you know what I mean?
Basket weaving. Basket weaving.
How do you like STLLUG so far? Or how long have you been using it and how do you like it?
I've been using it for like a month or two. It's a really big feature that drew me to it was the floating windows, but I never use those. Let's see, it's what, and I think the reason why I'm sticking with it is just the key bindings are at the bottom, so I can know and see there and go, oh yeah, that's the thing I'm looking for. With Tmux, it's more, oh, did I set up my config on this VM correctly, or was there something new I'm trying on my dev box outside of my work environment that's not set up properly? It doesn't quite work correctly at work. Whereas
but
here it's,
Did you redo all your bindings? So it looked like a lot of them that I saw by default conflict with Vim, and that would drive me insane. That would drive me crazy.
yeah, but it's got this Control G. So if there's something that conflicts, you just pop that on and you can do anything you want. The only one that's really annoying is was it Control P to get a completion is the default one. And so I've been constantly switching the lock on to get my completions going. But otherwise, no, it hasn't messed with me.
What about Control O? You don't use Control O all the time? I use that all the time.
Uh, uh,
Go back, basically. It's like the back
Control
button,
O.
sort of.
Yeah, Control O handles sessions, so you could go Control O and then suddenly hit D to detach, and you're out of everywhere. No, I don't use it that much.
Well, that was the whole thing with Tmux, right? It has that prefix
Yeah.
key, so it only using up one key binding, you know, from
Yeah.
from Vim. But STLLUG, so I'd have to like rebind it all, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, I have not dug too deeply into rebinding its key binds yet. Yeah, again though, you just Control G and you get whatever you want. Just have to remember to switch back out of it. I think there's
A second, what were you saying about Vim and Tmux?
so I'm using this new terminal multiplexer, and it seems to conflict a little bit more with Vim's key bindings, whereas Tmux does not.
Okay,
Because
I can see I've been using it for forever and I've never had a problem. Because there's one attention key and then that's the only one you have to worry about.
Well, Control B in Vim is not that useful, right? Isn't it like backwards a page, which you can use Control U and Control D that do half page, and it's like a little bit better.
Of course, if you use the cursor keys and page up, page down, it's immaterial.
Yeah, I mean,
What you get
guess.
used to.
yeah,
What about the arrow keys?
that's what he said.
heresy.
Oh, so when Lee calls it the cursor keys, it's okay, but when somebody else calls it the arrow keys, now all of a sudden it's heresy? I don't know.
Because cursor keys are just so old, no one knows about them. I didn't recognize it. See, just use your numpad like a civilized person.
No, HJK, etc.
Yeah.
That's at least if you're going to do discrete motions by themselves, those are the keys you're supposed to use, as opposed to the arrow keys to avoid the hand movement. And those, I believe, at least combine with multipliers. I don't think you can do 3 and the down arrow key to go down 3 lines, but you can do 3J.
Oh, we can press that.
It's worse than that. If you use the arrow keys, it breaks macros, it breaks, it basically boots you out of any type of
So
dot
in
repeat.
NeoVim, you can do 3 down arrow, which is pop down. Well, let's
Yeah,
try
but
let's do what?
if you use the arrow key, it
QA.
breaks dot repeat too. That's the other thing that
Okay.
sucks.
NeoVim seems to be fine with the keys in the macro, although it's just moving and not adjusting anything. But let's try the dot repeat. That and down the line. Okay.
This is Stan. It's I normally say it's a 10-minute warning, but I'm going to stop doing that because the library no longer closes at 9. It's starting to close at 8 o'clock.
Oh. But no, none of the good bars are open at 8.
Well, that's true.
I'm too old for that.
I'm too cheap for that.
All right, James, what else you got in your workflow? Anything else new besides Zellage?
Delta is a slightly better diff viewer. Let's see, has there been anything I've added recently? Not a whole lot of plugins. I don't like that. Again, it's just annoying to get into the work system. Nope, Zellage is probably the biggest thing. I mean,
What about
unless you
Yazzie? You're not on board with Yazzie?
Oh, I've never heard of Yazzie.
Never heard. Oh, this is the new trendiest. You thank me later. I've not used it either, but it's very trendy right now. It's like Ranger or NNNN.
Ah, that's one of those
LF.
file managers.
But it's Rust, of course.
Yeah.
All that, please.
James, that thing you were talking about, Zelly or
Mhm.
Zell?
Yeah, let me throw it in there.
Is that what you call event driven, where it gives you descriptions in the screen of what could possibly do with what you've done so far?
Yeah, I mean, if you're fine with me sharing my screen again.
Well, yeah, it is. And it's like with Nano is described as an event driven program because for new users, down at the bottom, it tells them what keys they can use. And it changes in context when they do, control this or other, then it gives you another 4 options, the kind of thing. That's termed as event-driven software.
So yeah, it does have that. This is actually a plugin, or rather a default plugin that comes with the program.
Right.
But Control G shows you what your mode you're in, and you have no keys left, but you can do like session, see what's going on, or it doesn't. It also has like the quick nav for Alt N for making a new pane, and then you can do like Control P to move it around or resize or stuff. And most of this, I don't really ever use, so I should probably get rid of it. But it's just been nice enough to have with the defaults. Oh, that's the other thing. I'm using Fish now as the shell at work more, just because I don't have to configure it at all.
What, other than you don't need to configure it, what advantages does it provide?
The completions, and then the default prompt with Bash or say ZSH, you have to go and configure the prompt or get like my ZSH to get the nice features. But with those Cat, hey, I'm on master, and the path is still there, but it's a little compressed. And then if I do it shows, hey, the exit code just by default. And those are really the only things I care about.
And I don't understand any of them.
Yeah.
I heard that Fish does continuous history append to his file, and that's why I've considered using it, but I haven't used it. Because it's so annoying to me when I open a new shell and the old one's
And
still
your
there.
history is not there. Yeah,
It's annoying. Yeah.
that is true. It's there. It's got a much larger history file as well by default. And oh, it does tab completion with SCP. So if I'm trying to SCP a file to VM, it can complete the path for you. It takes a while. Like it's a noticeable slowdown, but it does it for you.
So you've said three things that I have functioning in ZSH,
Mhm.
and I can't remember the last time I had to set it up. The RBAT, that's when you're more than a certain number of directories deep, you can abbreviate earlier directories.
Mhm.
There, that's part of the prompt. The error code, return code, there's displaying it. There's also conditionally displaying it and or changing the formatting of it. I have that, and the SSH or SCP completion that I don't ever remember setting that up. It just existed as long as I had SSH set up so that I could SSH to the target host.
Mhm.
It could log in. It would actually do it in the background.
Yeah, so hey, if you got the system that's working for you, great. I was just coming, like I said, I work in a sandbox environment. So if Bash or ZSH do those things, but you need plugins to make it nice,
No
that's just really, annoying to get working or configured.
Yes. You know,
Just
I pull my ZSH RC file around.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I'm not disciplined enough to do that, especially if I then want to update one with something on a different computer. So this is just nice. It's sensible enough defaults.
Fair enough. I can appreciate the defaults are comfortable enough. You don't feel the desire to do things. I have a slight issue adding an additional shell when it's not there,
Mhm.
especially when I'm on systems that,
Oh yeah, that you don't own or something. Yeah.
or it's like old AIX or old Solaris.
Yeah, good luck. Do we have Bash available? Maybe not.
Actually, Bash and ZSH are on the systems I work with. So
Yeah, I've worked with an AIX system or several, and yeah, it was a dice roll to see if you had Bash. Otherwise, you were just working with shell.
Corn Shell should be there, which is better than Born.
Yeah, well, yeah, but at the time I didn't know even how to use Corn, so it was just the boring stuff, and like the backspaces would not work
But
for something silly like that.
my personal profiles I have in a Git repo. So when I make
Mhm.
changes, I end up pushing that to
Mhm.
my local, or I have a directory .profile.d or something like that in my home, and my .zshrc is a symlink into that profile directory,
Mhm.
and that is the working directory of a Git repo that I have synchronized over SSH with a server I host. So, and then I have I can do git -C the directory and give git commands, but I've created an alias that is profile that allows me to rep git and as if I'm in the profile directory. So
Yeah, or yeah, that sounds like a good solution. I think Sean's done a talk on yet another file manager, and they're all good, but most of it relies on you have internet access, so you can pull your changes from any machine that you've worked with, which is not the case with me for my work.
yeah, I fortunately, most of the situations I deal with, the machines I'm on might not have internet access themselves, but they can communicate with a bastion and the bastion can communicate. So I pull the profile to the bastion and then I have
Mhm.
those target machines pull it from the bastion.
Man, I'd love to work with that. Or something
Yeah.
similar. Or
Yeah,
heck,
you
just be
mentioned
out on the
getting
internet.
you mentioned getting a tar ball of a Docker file and just putting it over on a USB.
Yeah.
But I remember when I worked for the DoD, like the part you left out was the 9,000
approved
memorandums and the 8,000 approvals that you need in order to get that thing over there. And
Yeah.
only certain USB models were authorized. And oh my God, what a nightmare! Really, you need to go to the private sector, dude. It's so
Yeah.
much better.
Oh, I am in the private sector. It's a contractor for them.
Well, no, that doesn't count.
Yeah.
I was a contractor too, pretty much the whole
Yeah.
time. So yeah, that's still public sector, even though
Yeah.
I mean, you got to play by the public sector rules. So it's basically being public sector.
We
And
have not ever had to like submit memorandum for please pull this in. So I'm hoping that never happens.
Is it DoD or which agency? Or you?
Yes.
I guess.
Yeah, I think most of the contracts are Air Force.
Yeah. And you didn't have to get like approvals to pull new stuff across the air gap.
We own this system. Now, that's not going to be the case for all the things. There's talk of like sustainment for some of our products, and that's owned by other companies and other networks and stuff.
Systems making a change in your home directory is one thing. Making a system-wide change, even if it's just installing bash off of vendor media, requires additional approval. Pulling something like fish in from the outside, quite a big hurdle. And that's one of the reasons I went down the road of taking the time to configure a shell that was on most systems.
I'm really annoyed looking at fish because I spent the last 2 or 3 mornings configuring ZSH with Home Manager, and it took me literally, dude, I'm telling you, it took me 3 hours to figure out how to get FZF to do this Control R that you have like out of the box. I've wasted so much time.
To do
Yeah, so if we look at my screen, I just hit Control R and it pops up. Oh, here's your history, and here's a fuzzy find for like Pac-Man.
yeah.
Here's the fuzzy find Pac-Man I had in there that I never remember, but it's apparently held in history. Now I can go, yeah, which one do I want? Peru.
What environment are you in, James?
This is Arch Linux, and the shell is fish.
Oh, fish. Okay.
Different shell. Yeah.
What is the 0 pipe 1 where you've got the return code on the other lines?
So that is showing the return code for each command in a pipe.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see, there we go. There's all my info.
You know, you're doing it wrong. You didn't actually go out of your way to say you're an Arch user.
By the way. See, you know that old phrase about, you go forth and preach the gospel, and sometimes if necessary, use your words. I'm taking that with Arch evangelism. I just show how much better it is. And then, if necessary, remind people, by the way, I'm on Arch.
I think
Yeah, but except what you've shown, I'm not seeing anything that is Arch specific.
you just
Sure
use
you have.
Pac-Man.
Yeah, Peru. And the AUR. I even got like colors on Peru, although I don't have the I like candy or I love candy on it, so it's not the Pac-Man when it's installing packages.
I think NixOS is the new I use Arch, by the way. I
The
think
new hotness. Yeah.
no, I don't think it's hotness. I think it's the new like I use Arch, by the way, because it's like the way harder than Arch.
Well, it's not just that. It's you got this dependency issue, this reproducible issue. I don't want to say Nix fixes it, but Nix fixes it. You get better CI locally.
Yeah, it's way harder, but then yeah, you can like hold your nose up at people that have these. Oh, I remember when I had to deal with dependency issues. Not anymore. I haven't gone full Nix. Well, I'm using NixOS on my system downstairs, but I've done almost nothing in NixOS. What I'm trying first is Home Manager, which is basically NixOS, but for your user land, like your user installed packages and configs and stuff. And NixOS is portable across different distros. So what I think I'm gonna do is install 2410 Ubuntu, because it should have all the fixes for the NVIDIA explicit sync stuff, and then just use Nix package manager and home manager on Ubuntu.
Yeah, to get the newer stuff.
Yeah, that'll wait, because like getting NeoVim and stuff on Ubuntu is like pretty annoying.
Yeah.
Well, like
Go and
NeoVim's
compile
like the
itself
snap is
and throw
good,
it-
but
yeah. Keep it up to date. Yeah, it's annoying.
yeah.
I think I got Nix set up on my Steam Deck once because desktop's not working. Might as well try and have it here, do all the things. How am I going to program? NixOS. There we go.
Yeah.
I am definitely not too deep in the weeds there.
Well, I spent some time. I actually redid my whole NeoVim config using NixVim, which is like a home manager kind of reproducible way to do a NeoVim config. And I can't say I recommend it, but it's interesting. I'm gonna keep trying it out. Are you still daily driving NeoVim, or have you switched to something else?
Yep, I'm still on NeoVim.
Yeah. Do you have AI chat in your NeoVim?
Nope.
Yeah.
Once again, I do most of the work in a place without internet, although there is talk of maybe getting our own AI system in there at some point, but I don't think I'm ever going to bite the bullet and just have AI or Copilot in my editor.
Yeah, I don't know if I can go back to not having that, That's gonna be hard for me, but I want to try it.
See, at this point, I just have junior devs do it for me.
Actual intelligence, not the artificial kind.
Well, some of them.
They can at least know what the number 2 plus the word 1 is supposed to be. Like,
There was a show called Next, which was on, I believe it was Fox Network about 4 years ago. And I know I had mentioned it, discussed at the time. It only ran one season, had no publicity, and it was spelled with the same font that Steve Jobs' old company Next was spelled with. And it was all about artificial intelligence. Is there anybody who didn't see this show?
Stan, I never saw it.
Okay, so this will give you the tone for it. What James just said about he works in a facility where it's not allowed to connect to the internet. Well, that was the facility where they were developing the artificial intelligence. It wasn't going to be allowed to connect to the internet. And the artificial intelligence was talking to one of the developers. And, it learned that the particular developer had a bit of a gambling problem. And so, started giving the developer gambling tips, what to bet on. And that was going well. And so one day he suggested to the developer, I could be a lot more effective giving you tips if only I had a connection to the internet. And so, of course, the developer went against company rules and very surreptitiously got a connection into the internet, the AI, and the whole series spawns from there. You can figure out what went wrong. So,
relying on humans to always do the proper thing.
He filled out those forms in triplicate to get the packages in their environment, right? All the DoD memorandums. Oh, and also, no one ever hides things in like docx files, right? Those aren't just zip files. going through right now, and oh, hey, when you deliver these things, just strip out like words from your documentation, and just to make sure, like, yeah, it's not your company or anything, but just, yeah, don't have it say like DoD or Air Force or something. And for some reason, we have to do this for like old releases too. And so one of them is from years ago. The documentation is docx, and wow, you look through it and there's nothing, no headers, no footers, no words, just in the body that match it. But in the metadata, no, there's a creator and there's a company field in the metadata. The only way I found to get rid of that is just open up the file and edit. You like unzip it and then edit the files manually and rezip it. Vim can do that for you, but it's still just, no, why? Why are you like this?
Hmm.
It's called lack of intelligence in the business community.
Someone had an idea at some point. We're not saying it's a good one, but it was an idea.
You know, the thing that drove me crazy that I'm remembering now about working for the DoD was I think I had 3 developers on my team, 3 or 4, but then I also had 3 people who only worked on the documentation. Do you have something like that?
No.
Okay. See, I'm glad that's getting better, because like I felt like that was so wasteful, because I don't even think anybody read the documentation. And I'm like, we could have had another developer if we weren't wasting all this money paying the salaries of these document writers,
Mm-hmm. There is a big effort though, like every release, let's go through and make sure the documentation's all right. So for like the last month, all the MRs, all the changes are documentation related, it feels like.
Yeah.
And not to mention
my experience in the Department of the Army was with every revision, they got new documentation. It was less useful, but it was prettier.
Oh, until I came along, all the documentation was docx. I convinced people, hey, maybe we could build PDFs out of Markdown. Come on, this is solved. We can keep the documentation in the repo.
Yeah, but to me, PDF is where information goes to die, because most other file formats, you can programmatically extract the data in a usable way. PDF, like a paragraph of text.
It can be hard, yeah.
If you get it out with something better than copy and paste, there's no guarantee that it's consecutive letters in the form of words, much less lines in the order. It may just be glyphs that are randomly placed to appear as words to a human.
Yeah, or for some reason you grab like the page numbers all the time, or the formatting doesn't like you, so you can't actually select what you need.
Yeah, you couldn't edit those PDFs the same way you can edit those docx files.
Yeah, but you didn't see the shenanigans we got up to insert like tables of contents into them. Like I think pretty sure at one point we were opening it up and running a LibreOffice headless instance just for like, what's it called? Not a macro, but a Power BI? Just something to generate a table of contents with all the like figures for all the images.
That surprises me, because I thought the docx, amongst other things, was an XML almost analogous to HTML. I would have expected you could have gotten that out of the zip container that is the docx.
Yeah,
structure in memory, found what you wanted, and generated a table of contents or whatever and inserted it.
Yeah, I mean, and even It's because Pandoc going from Markdown to DocX, because that's what we settled on for a short period of time, would not generate the table of contents for you. So you had to open up the DocX file, and I did not make that system, but it was, we'll run this macro, this like, what's that thing that everyone tells you in Excel to turn off?
Macro.
It's run this macro in LibreOffice to generate it for you.
Neovim. I just saw Neovim or Neofish over here.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, Stan has a request for Sean. What's the website? How's it going?
Okay. I am.
Me? Oh,
Well, actually, first off, I'd like to point out that on the old current website, I listed the topic as Linters versus review tools, which was based upon the initial discussion that Gary had done with James, and I never changed it because he changed it later on when he got the
Trey.
Okay.
the topic from James as being what is it? Automated code review. And I'm wondering which would be bring in more reviews, automated code review or Linters versus review tools, or
To me,
Linter and automated review or something, whatever.
automated code review, I feel like it's more, yes, it's part of what linters are supposed to do, but I feel like it's more equated to humans looking at things and checking business logic, not so much syntax type things. And I feel like linters probably won't go, you're touching an object, you want to not touch that, or that's the wrong method for it. Whereas those are the types of responses I would expect for a human.
Yeah. Well, automated code review is the topic title that James did put on his slides. I was just wondering.
And a couple of the things you can do like that. So danger, like I said, you can configure it in Ruby to parse your code base and the changes any way which you like, and check for, say, the example I used, were you adding tests when you should have been? Or were you touching a like a lock file to add a package dependency and trying to sneak that into a larger commit?
The thing I'm just trying to point out is sometimes difficult to provide a topic subject that may draw people in. My rule
when
of
it changes
thumb,
even.
Yeah, and my kind of rule of thumb is it needs to be 5 words or less, and it's really nice if it's some kind of technical word in those 5 words, you know. Just an editing issue, marketing or whatever. Otherwise, I did send a modified PNG file to Sean with the white background instead of the black Unix background.
yep.
I just wondered if he would.
Yeah, I got that, and I know how to put it in and make it display when the dark mode's on. I haven't done it yet. I'm going out of town tomorrow, so I probably won't be able to do it until next week.
Okay, I was just wondering if that would work for you, or if there was something else I could try. Maybe make a multiple. Can you do multiple displays with PNG? No.
No, I think it's
So-
gonna work. I think it's gonna work. I'll put it up there. Like I said, next week I'll probably get it up there and we can take a look at it. But yeah, I think it's gonna work.
And I've kind of grown accustomed to that St. Louis STLLUG with the penguin under the arch. The more I look at it, the better I like that, you know. But I do miss the old one. But hey, that looks pretty good.
I'm kind of curious from, I hate the way I'm asking, but from a marketing perspective, how much Unix that is non-Linux do people see, or kind of engagement? I have observed over the years that less and less more traditional Unix. It seems like every year it's almost like an order of magnitude less seeing things online in various places. Do you have any feel for engagement on Linux versus other Unixes?
Uh, my impression is that the younger people cannot spell Unix. They don't know the difference, and there is very little difference as far as I'm concerned. The difference that Linux runs differently on PCs and mainframes. Big deal. But that's
I'll divide it up into yet another category. Mac OS is BSD. It's certified. So all of the cell phones, all the Mac machines, all of the iPads, they're all BSD machines. So there's Mac OS and there's other BSDs. And the thing is the number of other BSDs is getting more and more limited all the time.
from a marketing perspective, I think that the younger people don't. If you say Unix, they don't know what. They don't even think it's anything real anymore.
Mhm.
They're under the impression it's old and ancient, and so they don't realize that Linux under the covers is Unix.
Yep.
Just
Slightly different. All
But
right, I have to get going, but it's been a good talk, everyone.
All right. Should we put a bookend on this and shut down the recording?
I believe so.
All
Please.
right. This was Thursday, October the 17th, 2024. This was the St. Louis Linux user group. And this was our monthly meeting. Our topic this evening was automated code review. And our presenter was James Conroy. Thank you all very much for coming. Good night.
Good night.